Hi, welcome back to my channel. I'm Patty Blue Hayes. I want to thank you all so much for subscribing, commenting. I'm really glad that you're enjoying the content. This week, I am answering the question, can I work in Panama as an expat? I see this question on the Facebook groups, the Panama Facebook groups, so often. And I think people have a lot of ideas that they can, just come to Panama and get a job, or, they have a profession that would be valuable in Panama, and maybe it's easy to get a job somewhere else in their home country, but there are a lot of parameters for expats being able to work in Panama. So I figured I'd jump into it. I am going to be reading from notes because it's very involved and detailed, and by no means is this like a comprehensive or 100% factual account, because there are so many ins and outs and nuances, and I am not an attorney. I'm just someone who's creating content on Panama for YouTube viewers. So don't take my words as legal advice. Okay, so first let's talk about work permits and visas. A work visa is typically a type of permission to enter a country for employment, while a work permit is the authorization to work once you're already in that country. Do non-citizens need a work visa or work permit in Panama? Yes. All foreign nationals who wish to live and work in Panama must obtain an immigration visa and establish residency before applying for a Panama work permit. Non-citizens without a work visa or permit are not legally allowed to engage in paid employment within Panama. If you violate that, you can get deported and face other penalties, so it's not worth it. The first thing to note is that there's restricted professions in Panama. I'm gonna have a bunch of links in the video description, but just to give you an idea, most types of engineering, from architect to civil engineering, is not allowed for foreign nationals. Interior design, psychologist, cosmetology and barbering, physiotherapy, journalist, medicine, nursing, law, accounting. So there's a lot of professions that expats are not able to engage in. Okay, so let's move into an employment visa, because that's one way to be able to work legally in Panama. So that would require that you look for a job in Panama before moving. And this is basically like where a company sponsors you to, get the permit, the work permit in place. It's kind of attached to your visa. So this is the most common type of visa for foreign workers, is the employment visa. That allows you to live and work in Panama for up to 2 years. You'll need a job offer from a Panamanian employer to apply for that type of visa. The employer typically sponsors the permit, which will be specific to your job role. If a company hires a foreigner who holds a valid work permit, the company has to meet the rule of 10 Panamanian employees for each hired foreigner. The rule doesn't apply to multinational companies, which have other rules that they follow. So that rule for 10 Panamanian employees for each foreign hire also extends to people who start a business in Panama. If you start a business in Panama, the Panamanian laws establish that only 10% of a company's workforce can be foreign. So therefore, to hire a foreign employee, you are required to obtain a work permit from the Ministry of Labor. And of course, there are exceptions and differences in this as well. So there are exceptions to all of these things. That's why it's really critical that you consult with an attorney. Immigration attorney, absolutely. And then they typically will be able to advise you on things like employment. So if you start a business in Panama, you also just have to keep within that rule of hiring mostly Panamanian workers, and just 10% of your workforce can be foreign individuals. Okay, so now let's talk about the residency visas that allow a work permit option. And keep in mind that no matter which residency visa you have, you can work online like I do. Doesn't matter how you got here. If you're on the pensionado and you want to continue working, you can do that online. So the first one is the Friendly Nations visa. That's the visa that I have, and I got it in 2019 when the requirements were different than what they are today. So you have to have proof of professional or economic ties to Panama, like employment or business ownership. And the benefits of that, you can work in various sectors excluding the protected professions. And this visa also allows you to own a business. Okay, the next one would be the Qualified Investor visa. And it's probably more geared to, high net worth people. And I kind of thought, well, why would they need a work permit? But I'll share in one of the reasons why, one of the benefits. So the requirements for that: investment of at least $300,000 in real estate, or $500,000 in the stock market or a local bank. You get your permanent residency within 30 days, so it's kind of like a fast track. It allows for work permits and can be good for entrepreneurs and investors. And the spouse, parents, and children under the age of 25 can qualify as dependents and obtain the same benefits. So I think that is actually like a good option for, let's say, a family that has, 3 kids under the age of 25, and you want all of them to be able to get work permits. I think that's a really good path to do that. The next one is the pensionado visa. So most people think that you can't work if you're in Panama with a pensionado visa, and I'm going to clarify in a second. So the pensionado visa is retirees with lifetime pensions. So it's like a social security payment or a company pension. It has to be something that is like guaranteed for life. So it can't be like interest on investments. The requirements, the minimum requirement is a monthly income of $1,000 or $750 if you're purchasing property. And then it's a little bit different than if you're a couple. That's for an individual. You also get really good discounts on things, but you get the jubilado discounts if you're 55 and over for women and 60 and over for men. So that doesn't matter what visa you have, you still get the jubilado benefits because of your age. Also, there's no age requirement for the jubilado visa. So if you're 40, but you have some kind of pension, you can qualify for that visa. Here's the caveat. While you can't work for someone else, you can own a business. So you can own a business having the pensionado visa. But going back to the other requirements, if you own a business, 90% of your workforce has to be Panamanian, and you cannot engage in the operations of your business. That's a real gray area where you definitely want to talk to an attorney. Okay, you can also do permanent residency by marriage. I would not recommend this option. I think that is probably worse than like buying real estate in less than your first year. I would put that at the top of my list of warnings. Like, do not get married in the first year of being in Panama. Yeah. Anyway, so anyone who marries a Panamanian citizen, you have full rights to work and live in Panama, including the professions that are accepted or protected ones. So you can work in those protected professions if you're married to a Panamanian citizen. And also you can work for any company without the need of additional government permits. And it means that you'll contribute into the Panamanian social security system and some kind of tax benefit as well. The next one would be a self-employment visa. If you're planning to start a business in Panama, you can apply for a self-employment visa. I hadn't heard of this one before, I don't think. So this type of visa allows you to live and work in Panama indefinitely, but you have to prove that you have financial resources to support yourself and your family. So when I moved to Panama in 2019, I was working online as a communication and leadership coach for a company, and so I could be location independent. It was globally distributed. We had people working all over the world. And that was great for a few years. And then we mostly served clients in the tech sector, and that kind of started to take a little bit of a dip right around during the quarantine time in 2021. Companies were cutting back on their learning and development programs, which we were typically a part of, and that was okay for a while. And then the company I was working for just kind of went on a pretty big downturn, and they were laying people off. And it was around that same time that I was, going to be finalizing the purchase of my house and starting on this big renovation project. And I think that I didn't prepare myself well at that time for the inevitable, which maybe I chose to kind of keep a blind eye toward. Looking back, it was definitely kind of naive to do what I did, which was basically kind of stick my head in the sand and hope for the best, that things were going to turn around and the company would go on an upswing, even though all the writing was on the wall that, they're laying people off, numbers are going down. But then I got really tied up with the renovation project for 8 months, and I just kind of figured like, well, if something, goes south with that, I'll be able to get another job coaching online. Well, I have been looking for work for a year and a half, probably a good year and a half. And it has been horrible. I barely even get responses. I joined LinkedIn just to network, which I cannot stand, doing. I'm kind of, I guess, like a solitary person. I'm not one of those like team spirit, I've always worked better on my own, doing my thing and contributing. And I like to do meaningful work and, having like just one-on-one interactions. That's why coaching is such a good fit for me. But nothing was coming through on Indeed, LinkedIn, ZipRecruiter, remote only jobs. Like I've been looking everywhere. And then I'd go to Upwork because I have a profile there, but I don't use the paid plan because I was a user of that platform long before they went to this paid option. And I think I just stubbornly feel like, I shouldn't have to pay to have my profile visible for potential work. So they give you credits, and I put in, like each time I apply for a freelance position, it eats up a certain amount of credits. So I have to be really judicious about which projects I'm applying for. Nothing has come from that at all in a year and a half. So nothing from Upwork. Like, I've had a couple of close things. I actually got hired as a coach for a MCAT test prep company. But then, like 2 months after working, they decided to cut that program. So there went that. And none of my efforts have had any results. So then that's why I kind of doubled down on YouTube, because I knew that, people could monetize their channel, they could, make some money. And then that's when I just got super consistent with posting, every week. And, while it's not fantastic money, at least there's like, at first there was like $100 a month, which fine, that covers my cell phone bill and, the water bill and the electric bill. Or, it's just gas in the car or groceries or whatever. Then it increased a little bit. So thank you to everyone who watches the ads or has subscribed. I really appreciate it, because, I'm relying on that money. And then I also decided to, look at other avenues to generate income, because looking for a job just was not going anywhere. Thankfully, I have the Airbnb, but you all know the insanity that I have dealt with that roof, which now is fixed. I think I've said that a few times before, but it really is. So that's why I kind of went back to my first love, which is publishing. In 2015, I wrote and published my first book. That's Wine, Sex, and Suicide, My Near-Death Divorce. And that was a journal that chronicled the absolute dark night of the soul journey after the abrupt end to my marriage. And I had intended on writing about a year of doing volunteer work and service projects and healing and becoming a whole new brand new person and, happy. Ha ha ha. No. It was a really, really dark time in my life, but I wanted to share that experience because I know that I was not alone. Even though I felt so very alone in the world, I know that there are people who go through the same exact things that I did, and I wanted to share that. And I'd always wanted to write books since I was 11. I've always kind of had that dream. And then I wrote a few more books, like a travel guide for Thailand and a little bit of a self-help book on 12 practices to heal from heartbreak. And then I just published a book recently that some of you had purchased. Thank you very much. But then I unpublished it because I signed up for this class on KDP Publishing. That's Kindle Direct Publishing. And it's something that I already knew but had escaped my mind. You have to title a book with keywords that people are actually searching for. So no one is searching for my, cute little title of Sweep, Scrub, Poop, How to Turn Mindless Tasks into Mindful Moments. Nobody is putting that in Amazon. What they're putting in Amazon is, habit change, mindfulness, micro habits, that kind of thing. So the book now has a new title and a new cover. If you've read it or read any portion of it, now is the time to leave a review. The link is in the description. Just leave an honest review, because that's what helps the algorithms, and it helps people decide whether that's a book for them. The newest endeavor are these coloring books. So the class that I'm taking is talking about, medium content and low content books. And I figured, well, let me try and put some of these together. And so I have these 4 kind of gratitude focused adult coloring books, very simple, really bold, easy to see, not overwhelming or stressful. And that's been a really great process. So if you're interested in those, definitely, order some, enjoy the coloring, let me know what your experience is like. And I'm going to be working on a few other books, and I'm really excited about it. I love writing, and so that's my story, what I'm doing. It's definitely been a lean year and a half, but I have faith that things will turn around. I've had lean times before, I've been flush before. So the nice thing is that, I don't have a rent payment or a mortgage payment. I'm not worried about, like being evicted. So anyway, thanks for listening to that. Let me get back to the other ways that you can get work permits in Panama. Okay, so this next little grouping are non-residency types of work permits. And the costs range anywhere from like $100 to $600 in government fees, plus some other fees. But again, check with an attorney if you're interested in any of these. So one of them is a short-term work permit. It's for expats with job offers in non-protected professions or a short-term assignment. You have to be sponsored and have a work contract. And these work permits can last anywhere from 6 months to 3 years, and they can be renewed based on the employment contract. So this could be good for technology, education, hospitality, and other types of professions. Then there's a professional employment visa. This is for foreign professionals hired in fields not on the protected list. You need a bachelor's degree at a minimum, a job offer, and proof that the role isn't reserved for Panamanian citizens. So this visa allows you to have legal employment without needing to become a permanent resident. Then there's also the digital nomad visa. So it's a short-term visa for people who work remotely. And it actually was created to encourage, tourism and for telecommuting travelers. So you have to prove that you have a contract with a foreign company, that you're self-employed to work remotely for that company, have an annual income of at least $36,000, and then once all that goes through, you have a 9-month term to stay in Panama on the digital nomad visa. And also it's extendable for the same period of time. So there are actually some other creative and interesting ways to get work permits. I'm not going to go into the details because for most of us it's not going to apply. But if you're interested, you can look into the City of Knowledge. So that was an area near the Howard Air Force Base. And when it was turned back over to Panama, it was, I guess, kind of used for maybe education or startups or NGOs. So that's something to look into. And then also the free trade zone in Cologne. That's another way to get a work permit, is finding employment within a company in the free trade zone. Also for humanitarian organizations, and the Panama and Italy Treaty. So I just thought that was so interesting. And it's a perfect explanation why there are so many good Italian restaurants in Panama. Well, Panama and Italy have had this treaty for years, making an easier pathway for residency for Italians, and it was to kind of foster a connection of, you know, travel and commerce between Italy and Panama. What would an Italian do coming to Panama? They'd open up a restaurant, thankfully. Otherwise, what would we do for pizza and pasta? So those are some ways of getting work permits. I hope this was helpful information, and I will see you next time. Working on some other kind of interesting content, and thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next week.